and welcome to GameSack. This time around, we're talking about some games that they never really caught on. They're not necessarily good or bad. They could be either or, but they just never really...
Yeah, they never really made it. A company made this game, and who knows why they didn't pursue to make sequels or mini sequels or whatever.
We are going to speculate why, though. Perhaps they didn't go any further than they did.
Yeah, and it's just kind of a weird episode in general, but you guys will get the drift of where we're trying to get across.
I think so. And anyway, I've got the first game, so...
Oh, let's take a look.
Okay. Wonder Dog was one of the first games released on the Sega CD. It's a platformer by Core, who would go on to make the Tomb Raider series. This game was originally on the Amiga, but nobody cared, so they thought they'd put it on the Sega CD to see how it'd do. Hell, maybe they could make a bunch of Wonder Dog games. Well, no. This game has quite a few issues. For one, the story makes no sense at all. There's an opening narration explaining that basically you're Superman with the same backstory, but a dog instead.
I'm sending my only pup off to a distant planet uncovered by our deep space probes.
Then you get a cartoon that opens the game that shows you right after you crash on Earth. This was actually pretty cool at the time, but the drawings are pretty goofy looking. Anyway, you play fetch and do other dog stuff with this kid that finds you. But his evil dad won't let you keep him, so they abandon you on the side of the road like any upstanding people would naturally do. Nobody else seems to want you either. All of a sudden, you get an idea. You go back to your ship and you put on some fancy Wonder Dog clothes. Now your mission is clear, and suddenly there are lots of enemies to attack, including bunnies and other dogs. How the first situation led to the other, I couldn't tell you. Anyway, you shoot a bouncing star and it's pretty tough to hit enemies with. It's also really easy to get hit and damaged by enemies. You have a run button, but it doesn't double as your fire button like in Mario games, and you need to use a run button a lot to reach certain places. So pretty much any control configuration sucks. When you get hurt, you make a Scooby-Doo sound. Hilarious! No, not really. The graphics are decent, I suppose. When I saw pictures of this stage in the magazines, I thought the buildings would be moving and warping around using the Sega CD's advanced scaling. Nope. In fact, the only hardware scaling I see in the game is this scene here. Yippee. The music has its moments, but it's really quiet and muffled. The game overall is average at best, and it's easy to see why it didn't draw a big audience. Even if every household in the world had a Sega CD, I still think Wonder Dog would have been passed over for better games.
The Mark of Cree for the PS2 was released in 2002. The thing that attracted me originally to this game was the cartoonish style of the graphics, and after I started playing, I realized there was way more to this game that I enjoyed. The story is good with tons of twists. You play as Rao, who starts out destroying a pack of bandits around your village. Pretty easy, I know. Once word gets out that you're awesome, the story takes a twist and you end up trying to save your sister, who has the Mark of Cree, which is needed to unlock evil powers. I really like how the story is told between levels, with the hand-drawn art and the narrator filling in the details. It really kept me involved with the game. Anyways, the story is cool, but the gameplay is way better. The use of the controller is very different from other games. Your right analog stick is used to focus your attacks. You highlight enemies and they are assigned a button. So the guy with the X above his head is going to get killed when you use the X button, and so forth. There's no jump button in this game, and when you approach walls and such, your character climbs automatically. The only thing I don't like about this is that your character sheathes his weapon every time he climbs a ladder or up a ledge. It takes extra time for this animation, and it can get you in trouble if an enemy is waiting for you at the top. As the game progresses, you get access to new weapons, which is great. I especially like the bow and arrow. It's really fun picking off enemies from a distance. At first, I wondered why this game got a mature rating, but after seeing some of the deaths you deal out, it's definitely justified. Another cool aspect I like is the bird that accompanies you. You have Beastmaster type skills and you can see through the eyes of the bird. This is great and lets you see where the enemies are. The music is almost more ambient than anything. A sequel was released a few years later in 2005. It wasn't nearly as good. Although it's barely 10 years old, it seems that most people have forgotten about this game already.
Bravo Man by Namco was released for the TurboGrafx 16 in 1990. It's a port of a Japanese arcade game, and the goal of the game is to defeat Dr. Bomb by using your stretchable limbs to attack enemies. But just who is Dr. Bomb?
I'm Dr. Bomb.
Yeah, that's Dr. Bomb. Do I really need to defeat him? It kind of looks like he's already been defeated by life. Still, he tells you who he is at the beginning of every single stage, just in case you forget.
I'm Dr. Bomb.
Anyway, as you punch and kick, you freeze wherever you are, even in midair. This definitely takes some getting used to. And even though your fist will pass through multiple enemies at once, it only affects the one that's closest to you. Oh yeah, and Bravo Man loves his name too. In fact, he says it every single time you do a stretch attack.
Bravo! 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 Bravo!
Just shut the hell up already, nobody cares about you. The gameplay feels kinda stiff, and there's not a lot of variety in the stages. Except when you get to the underwater shooter stage. This is cool and it's a nice diversion, but it's no Lords of Thunder or anything like that. The graphics are only just okay, but the scrolling is actually pretty impressive. I was surprised. The music isn't really anything special at all, and therefore it fits the game perfectly. Bravo Man never set the world on fire because honestly the game is slightly annoying to play after a while. It's really hard and it's super long. I mean, it's difficult and it has a lot of stages. Also, the main character has all of the charm and appeal of a wad of tape.
Bravo! 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 Bravo!
Whatever happened to Crash Team Racing? You know, the one released on the PlayStation 1 in 1999? It's easily my favorite Mario Kart clone. Well, actually this game is more of a mix of Mario Kart and Diddy Kong Racing. The game has an overworld hub where you drive around and enter races. Each time you win a race, you get a trophy. When you win all trophies for a certain area, you race a boss to get a key. The key opens up a new area filled with more tracks to race with another boss. If you've played and enjoyed Mario Kart, then you'll have absolutely no problem controlling this game. There are very few things that set this game apart in the control department. The only differences that I can tell are in the power slide. This game requires you to push an extra button during a power slide to get a boost, whereas Mario Kart doesn't. Also, you can gain a boost by getting air off of jumps. For a 14-year-old game, the graphics are actually still fairly good with lots of color and some good detail to the characters and tracks. The only problem that I've seen with this game is that there's some clipping in some of the tracks. The tracks are all laid out very well and for the most part are fun to race and have good atmosphere. The music is wacky just like the music from the Crash series. It's good for the most part and is fun to race to. This could have been a great series throughout the years on all of Sony's platforms. It could have easily contended with Mario Kart for top position in the kart racing genre, but I guess the powers involved didn't think so. It's a very fun game and I recommend it.
Bug was an early release by Sega for the Saturn. You play the role of Bug, who is an actor. In fact, the entire game is a movie.
And action!
I don't know what to think about that. I mean, it's gotta be better than Ants, right? Yeah, okay, that was lame. Anyway, the plot of this movie is that the bitchy Widow Queen Cadavra has kidnapped your family and now it's up to you to get them back. Yeah, that's right, bitchy Widow Queen, right on the back of the box. Rating kids to adults. It's a 3D platformer, kind of. Actually, I thought this game was pretty cool back when it was new because you could travel not only left and right, but into and out of the screen as well. The gimmick wore off quickly though, as the controls were spotty at best. Basically, all you need to do is just make it to the end of the stage. You can collect gems and stuff on your way if that's your thing. There are 3 stages in each zone, as there were in most mascot-style games back in this time. There's also a boss fight for each level where the boss requires no less than 10,000 hits to die. Okay, I exaggerate, but god, that's a lot. I feel that the insect theme is perhaps played out a bit too much, and of course Bug has lots and lots of tood. Seriously, did anyone actually like it when game characters had tood?
I hate that.
The graphics are okay. Every sprite is pre-rendered because that was the big fad that everyone loved back then, except for me of course. The levels themselves aren't very interesting as you're just traveling on narrow pathways that resemble a maze through most of the game. Depth perception is also a big problem, and it's hard to tell exactly where anything is. The music isn't even worth mentioning, except that I just did. Crap. Anyway, it's pretty easy to see why this didn't set the gaming community on fire. Amazingly, the game did get a sequel called Bug 2. It's a little better, I suppose. It even feels slightly smoother. But it's still Bug, and we'll never see him again.
Okay, Mr. Hotshot Game Player, now what?
Now this, you little ass.
All right, Joe, pretty cool. I liked some of the games there. Bug, I think, had a lot of potential, but as you were talking about it, moving in and out of the background was really the only thing that really made that stand out.
Yeah.
Who wants to play as a bug anyways? But, oh, well.
Yeah. Anyway, it's your turn next.
Yeah, it's my turn. We're going to go back to the Super Nintendo and take a look at something Nintendo really tried to make happen here, but...
Oh, I'm sure this is going to be amazing.
It is.
Okay.
Hold on tight.
Let's check it out.
Stunt Race FX by Nintendo is the second game to use the fabled FX chip for extra polygonal effects. I applaud Nintendo for making this game, but I feel that the Super Nintendo really wasn't ready for this kind of racing game. It seemed like a lot for the system to handle. I'm not saying I don't like this game, as I do like playing it. Honestly, it's probably been about 15 years since I played this game, and my feelings today are pretty much what I felt back then. Firstly, as you can see, the gameplay screen has been shrunk down a bit to make room for the HUD. And of course, it was also shrunk down to help the performance of the FX chip. The game is colorful, and the tracks are all well designed, but as you can see, at times it's hard to tell exactly where you're going. Yeah, once you learn the layout of all the tracks, you know exactly where you need to be, but picking it up after 15 years, I was all over the place for a while. The control is tough. It's not horrible, but it's very easy to oversteer, and you're constantly correcting yourself. I found that after playing this game for an hour, I got much better, but still I was never fully comfortable controlling my vehicle. Besides using the D-pad to turn, you can also use the shoulder buttons to help you around tight corners, kind of like F-Zero. You also have a boost button which helps you catch up or increase your lead over your opponents. The game runs really slow for the most part, and you never really feel a sense of speed until you start racing on the master tracks, and even then it's not super fast. The music is hit and miss. There are two really good music tracks that I would have no problem putting on my MP3 player, but most of the other ones are just average. Nintendo is obviously ready to let this one slip away into the history books. I don't know if it sold poorly, but you'd think it would have been a natural title to have on the N64, and it could have been a great franchise, but it just wasn't. It's too bad, too.
Astal was an early game for the Saturn. Damn, I seem to be talking about a lot of early games, don't I? Oh well. Anyway, this game was quite a spectacle when it came out. I mean, just look at it. It's got amazingly colorful hand-painted backgrounds. Even the sprites look great. The whole game is a 2D visual tour de force. I remember when old magazines used that term, tour de force. Not really sure what it means, but it's gotta be good. I also remember when I first showed Dave this game, and he commented on how awesome a Castlevania game would be if they ever made one for the Saturn.
Well, am I lying, Joe? Wouldn't these graphics make an awesome Castlevania game? Instead, all we got was a poor port of Symphony of the Night with mesh graphics and a new level or something.
Anyway, on to the gameplay itself. As you can see, it's another platformer. That's okay, I love platformers, and so should you. Basically, you smash everything with your fists or throw things to their doom. You can also bounce on top of enemies, but it'll only stun them. When anything dies, it turns into a crystal that shatters. In the first stage, you'll acquire a bird who helps you out through the rest of the game. When you hear the alarm, press the X or Y button and the bird will either do a super attack, get you life-saving fruit, or temporarily stabilize a moving platform. There's even a 2-player co-op mode where player 2 controls the bird. The stages themselves are generally pretty short and not tremendously difficult, but each one is different and I like that. The controls aren't exactly what I would call spot on, but they're good enough to get the job done. You have a bunch of different moves like blowing out fire-laden enemies and pounding the ground. You can even pound on this poor creature to force him to give you a ride across the river. I don't think he likes being pounded on though. Poor thing, what did he ever do to you? I think that the music in this game is just as fantastic as the graphics and very fitting. I just wish it were Redbook audio so that it would be more clear and easier to rip. The game is pretty fun and probably didn't catch on since it was 2D and nearly everyone at the time only wanted 3D games. It could have definitely benefited from better character design as Astal himself just looks goofy. Also, the box art sure didn't win anyone over. Still, a stall was not to be and remains only a footnote in Saturn history.
Who says Nintendo can't do blast processing? Uniracers is the game that proves Nintendo's machine is every bit as capable as Sega at blast processing. Well, the game does run fast, I will give it that, but damn is it boring to play. So you have your unicycle that you race against one opponent. You can do tricks with your unicycle and it will give you speed boosts. Of course, you're trying to get the lowest time possible, so every bit of speed will help. It's fun to race for a little while, but it gets old very quickly as I find the tracks are all really boring. You can't see far in front of your unicycle, so you never know what's coming next, and I don't like this. There are lots of different backgrounds to look at, but they are just ugly and don't really have anything to offer. The music is a shining point of this game, and you know what? It's just average at best. It's all synthesized guitar, and it really does make you want to race and go fast, but then you realize you're racing as a unicycle and just settle back into boringness. Did I mention this game is boring? Alright, you tell me, which would you rather watch? A unicycle without a rider doing tricks? Or a real guy on a unicycle doing tricks? One interesting tidbit about this game is that Pixar Animation sued DMA Productions. They said it's because the unicycles look way too similar to something seen in a Pixar short. Of course, DMA lost and the game was pulled off of shelves all over Europe, only selling around 300,000 copies. I think this game didn't catch on because, well, frankly, it just kinda sucks. And they had to pull the copies because of the lawsuit, but mostly because it sucks.
Ristar was released on the Genesis by Sega late in the console's life. Wow, I'm finally talking about a game that came out when the console had matured. Cool. It's a mascot-style platformer and you play as a weird star thing trying to rescue his dad. You'll use your stretchy arms to do pretty much everything in this game. You grab enemies to headbutt them, you climb ladders, you swing yourself around poles to progress to a different part of the level, and stuff like that. You can throw your arms out in a whopping 8 different directions to help you grab a hold of things. For the most part, this game is incredibly fun, especially the boss fights. I really like those. There are 3 stages per world, just like in Sonic, but this game's stages are different instead of just the same stuff again and again with a different layout. Even the music is unique for every stage. To me, that just really adds to the game. The graphics are pretty colorful as you can see, and they do some nice though subtle effects here and there, like a pole that smoothly rotates as it falls over. Ristar himself has lots of cute weight animations. In the fire levels he sweats, and in the snow level he makes a little snowman. Aw, how cute. The music is extremely catchy and it fits this game like a glove. But there are 2 things that bring Ristar down a bit for me. First and foremost is Ristar's voice. He says that every single time you start a game. Play with me, really? Is this game for 4-year-olds or something? Not only that, but the voice quality is some of the worst on the Genesis. And some levels even attempt singing with the same horrible sound quality. Honestly, they should have left all of the voices out and it would have been a better game. Seriously, do it right or just don't do it at all. And then there's these spinny things. I hate these things, they're so hard for me to control. God forbid you accidentally go to a bonus stage full of these things. Thanks, but I'd just rather wait out the timer. Anyway, Ristar had a lot going for him, but for whatever reason, he just never caught on and Sega abandoned him after they released a Game Gear version. I'm telling you, it's his voice. Play with me. Play with me. Aw man, finish gargling before you talk.
Solar Striker for the Game Boy was a shooter made by Nintendo. Yep, that's right, Nintendo actually made a shooter, and guess what? It's good! This game was released in 1990 to some fairly good reviews. I remember my parents bought me this game as a gift when they were vacationing in Florida. I played it for a long time trying to beat it, and don't write it off as easy just because it's on the Game Boy. The game throws you into some tough situations. You have 3 ships that each can take 1 hit and then it's game over with no continues. The only saving grace is that when you die, you start off right where you left off, and your weapon gets downgraded only by one power-up. Speaking of power-ups, your weapon is the only thing that can be powered up. So don't try looking for speed boosts or anything like that, they're just not here. Your weapon can be powered up 4 levels, and the top level is actually really strong and definitely helps in boss fights. There are 6 levels in all, and the difficulty ramps up hugely as you get to the later levels. Each level is fun to play, and there are many types of enemies in each stage, so it doesn't ever feel stagnant. The music is really good, and the melodies are really catchy and memorable. So why didn't this game become a huge hit? Maybe because there are so many other shooters out there on every single system that people didn't pay this one much attention. Could be. Or maybe because Nintendo didn't like making shooters, but they definitely had some talent. Oh well, get this game if you can, it's good stuff.
Wow, Dave, I'm actually surprised that Nintendo made a shooter. I mean,
Yeah, me too.
granted, they're no Technosoft or even a Konami,
Well, that's
but
very true, but what they did offer was actually very fun.
Yeah,
I
it
enjoyed
was, yeah.
And, a little tidbit actually is the co-designer of that game is, remember the name Gunpei Yokoi?
Oh, really? He did that?
Yeah,
The Game Boy guy.
Game
the
Boy
game...
guy and the Virtual Boy guy, so.
Oh, yeah, we won't mention
Well,
that.
yeah, that's
So-
a spicy topic.
Anyway, what are some games that you feel that just never really caught their intended audience? They could have gone on to be like mega popular, or maybe their developers intended them to be like super popular,
Yeah.
or maybe have a series, but they just couldn't do it.
And they just left them in the dust, left
Yeah.
them to rot.
Yeah.
So, some good ideas out there.
Yeah. Anyway, let us know, and in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack.
Sweet, Joe, you playing the old Master System?
Yeah, well, actually, Dave, this is the new Master System released recently by Ad Games.
What are you talking about? It's not new. This is
Yeah,
the
it
old,
is.
same old Master System.
Well, it's retro style. Do you want to try?
I'd love
Come
to,
on,
yeah. I
yeah,
brought my
yeah.
Power Strike and I was wanting to play it.
Okay.
Joe, I can't put the cartridge in. What's going on here?
No, Dave. It's download only. So give me your credit card. It doesn't take cartridges.
I don't know about this, Joe. I mean, this is
Oh, come on.
This
Come
is
on.
crazy. You got a whole wall of Master System games here. Why
Yeah,
would
but
you need
the great thing about the Ad Games Master System is that you don't need to use them anymore. It's all conveniently located right here. See, you want to play Power Strike? I'll get you Power Strike.
This
there,
is just crazy.
there we go. Power Strike, only $50.